program with the Department of Agriculture. Agriculture Secretary William Dar is with us. Secretary Dar, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Karen, and good morning to all your viewers.
As we continue our discussion from yesterday, just recently, the Department of Agriculture was hit by the lower house for what they call a non-responsive 2022 budget. The lower house says, number one, the 2022 budget of the DA doesn't have enough funds for farmers and fisher folk, and there is no cash assistance for farmers. How would you describe the 2022 budget of the DA?
Thank you, Karen. Yes, the 2022 budget of the Department of Agriculture, which is just about 91 billion to include corporations and attached agencies, is just good enough to respond, but not significant enough to bring to a higher level of food sufficiency. So that's the challenge. We would like to have bigger budget, but of course, we are part of the government in terms of, looking at how the budget should be also distributed to other sectors of the economy.
Your first request was 231 billion, is that correct?
That's true. That's the level of request we submitted to the Department of Budget and Management. And what was given is, in the National Expenditure Program, is only 91 billion.
But that is such a big cut. Why do you believe the cut is that big?
Well, we have been looking forward for a much bigger budget because that's the only way we can jumpstart and unleash the potential of the sector, All these years, the budget of agriculture is in that level, 80, 90 billion, but we were looking forward. And as we said, this is now the time, because of the pandemic, because of this new normal, that significant allocation must be made for the sector of agriculture. We have shown how agriculture is faring and showing its resilient growth during this pandemic. For the last 1.5 years, in spite also of a lingering African swine fever, ay halos nasa flat growth po na ang sektor ng agrikultura. So ang ibig sabihin po yun ay there is resiliency of the sector. If you add more budgetary support, that can be a boost to really looking at the higher level of outcomes at the end of the day.
Is this government sending the wrong message to farmers? We keep saying that the agricultural sector is important, and yet the slash of the budget is so dramatic. There's no cash assistance to farmers and fisher folk, and you essentially don't even have funds for farmers as well. The question is, there are parts of the budget you have an increase with the NTF-LCAT. There's a lump sum of 10 billion to the GEF, which was never there before.
Okay, Karen, let me mention what I said in the House of Representatives. I was asked the question, am I happy of the budget that we are given under the National Expenditure Program? I said, I'm happy, but I will be much, much happier being the servant leader here if we are allocated much higher budget to really unleash the potential of the sector. Now, you said earlier
But I wanted not to interrupt, but how could you be happy if you have a budget that doesn't support or give aid to farmers? What's to be happy about that?
Okay, there are two types of ayuda, Karen. What we mentioned during the budget hearing in the House, yung cash assistance is one of them. The second one is the agricultural inputs that we give free to farmers. So that's another form of ayuda. Now, in the form of the cash assistance, dito po sa taon na ito ay mayroon nakalaan naman this year, yung sa out of the excess tariff ng rice tariffication law, we are going to distribute by the fourth quarter the rice financial assistance at 1.5 million farmers to be receiving. These are the rice farmers tilling 2 hectares and below at 5,000 pesos each. Now, next year, that will continue to be so, depending on the excess tariff that will be collected this year. So, tuloy-tuloy po yung cash assistance. Now, all the rest are in the form of what I call in-kind assistance.
Yes, but if you say tuloy-tuloy ang assistance, the original proposal is 231 billion. You're cut down to 91 billion. What was the 140 billion for?
Okay, let me...
So clearly something's been cut.
Yes, ganito po, ito yung pananaw po natin sana for 2022. Yung rice production program natin is well-funded na. Almost 80 billion. Isama mo yung 30 billion na coming from NIA. Kasi patubig yun eh. So pag sinama mo yun, yung budgetary support ng gobyerno for rice production is almost 80 billion, which is the level that we need to have yearly assistance to rice farmers in the form of agricultural interventions, inputs, and the like. Now, what we would have liked, this is our prayer for next year. All the other subsectors of the agriculture sector, to include high-value crops, which is also pursuing diversification, the livestock and poultry subsector, and the fisheries sector. Itong tatlong grupo po na ito ay misly budgeted. More than 1 billion each ang budget po ng high value, livestock and poultry, and fisheries. So we really would like to enhance the growth of this. High value agriculture, by the name itself, you can, properly invested, ay malaki po ang ambag nito sa ating ekonomiya. Ganon din sa livestock and poultry. More than 30% ang ambag niya sa gross value added in agriculture. Ang fisheries ay may mga 17%. Pero ang budget lang nasa level na, I would say, this is the higher level, 4 billion a year sa fisheries. We would have wanted more.
Okay, but I'm curious, what will suffer with a 140 billion peso cut in your budget?
Well, ang present budget level namin kasi, Karen, this year, 2021, ay halos 90 billion din eh. 1% lang ang increase for next year. So what will suffer ay kagaya sa rice.
A simple question, or a tough one. It's a question for our children, or a childish one. It's a question of love. And for our loved ones, it's a question of hope. It's a question of trust. Whatever the question, it's a question of our life right now. Get vaccine-related facts on Google.
It's clear now. What has driven human progress this far now threatens future generations. We can regret the past, we can dream about the future. But there's only one time to change the world. That moment is now. The moment we electrify the world. The moment we unleash the true power of natural resources. The moment we change how we move. The moment we reach for unimaginable goals. The moment we empower society. This is the moment we all do the right thing for humanity.
Again, I will give you an example from rice. Properly invested, ang ganda po ang outcomes ng rice production. Last year, we had the record harvest in rice, 19.4 million metric tons. This first semester, we have the highest also rice production in the history. And so it's showing that as you give more budget, as you support the development of a commodity industry, the outcomes are phenomenal. So ganun din ang aming hypothesis dito sa iba't ibang subsectors. Kung mabuhusan po natin ng suporta, itong mga high-value crops, livestock and poultry, itong fisheries, mabuti sa 2022, ang livestock ay dinagdagan ng 4 billion pesos para sa repopulation natin at sa laban sa African swine fever.
Okay. Now, the lower house also flagged the allocation, the lump sum allocation of 16.3 billion pesos to the National Irrigation Administration, or NIA. The lower house said they found it questionable, considering that the NIA's performance when it comes to irrigation has been quite poor.
Well, I would like to excuse myself answering the question kasi NIA is not under the oversight of the Department of Agriculture. So, mahirap naman na I may be giving the wrong answer.
But do you believe, I mean, considering that irrigation is tied to agriculture?
Very much so, very much so. And actually, mayroon kaming proposal na kung pwede, mamarapatin po ng mahal na Pangulo ay ilipat na sa kagawaran ng pagsasaka itong National Irrigation Administration. Because, you know, water is agriculture. Agriculture is life. And so on. You can cite a number of justification why it is necessary for the National Irrigation Administration to be part of the 1DA family.
Because the problem that you have now is, given that you have said you don't hold oversight functions with NIA, the COA has flagged NIA for measly increase in irrigation, which would mean it affects the production of our farmers as well. And
What I can say, Karen, because I've been analyzing the whole situation all this time, you know, we still have 1.2 million hectares of rice lands needing national irrigation systems development. Okay. Now, having said that, at the rate government have been investing and supporting national irrigation systems development, it will take another 20 years before this 1.2 million hectares will be properly irrigated. So I was suggesting the idea through our oversight secretary sa NIA, si CAPSEC Carlo Nograles, and even to NIA itself, na why don't we open up the NIA for public-private partnership, meaning we encourage the private sector to invest and you pay them, you know, accordingly. para as you have more private sector investing in the development of the national irrigation systems, then you can enhance and not wait 20 years, but maybe target for the next 6 years the development of national irrigation systems.
But is the government putting money where its mouth is, so to speak? Is this a pandemic responsive budget? I mean,
Well,
clearly the government has a zero hunger program, and yet it is not fully funding the needs of farmers.
I
So
can
how do we have a zero hunger program without funding farmers?
Tama po. What I can say the 91 billion that we have plus the NIA 30 billion is just the barest minimum to sustain a response to COVID-19. Now, we could have been in a better situation, higher levels of food sufficiency for most of the commodity industries properly budgeted.
Is there any aspect of the budget you believe that can actually move to agri?
This is one discussion the House of Representatives was moving toward, and I think it is their final judgment that will make it possible. As we said in the cabinet, it's a zero-sum game, meaning if you have to have additionally budget for agriculture, that has to come from within the National Expenditure Program.
But how would you describe the utilization of the DA budget for 2020-21?
Okay po, Karen, yung we per our lessons in 2020, we are elevating our game kasi we need to use properly every peso that is budgeted for the Department of Agriculture. Dito po sa agrikultura ay sinisigurado po na walang corruption. Yung mga nasabi na binalik po natin noong 2020 ay bumabalik kasi continuing appropriations, naglaps ng NCA, loan proceeds yan. So continuing nagagasto po namin na mabuti itong taon na 2021. And you will see a better outcome again this year.
Okay, but let's be honest. Given that we are closing 2021, the second year into the pandemic, is it right to say that come next year, farmers and fisher folk have no more cash aid or any possible financial assistance to expect from the DA?
I have mentioned, the same question was asked Karen in the House, and I said, if Bayanihan 3 is possible, then as we said in earlier Bayanihans, doon namin nagawa ng paraan na nagbigay ng cash and food assistance to our farmers. So, ililinya po natin yan, yung cash assistance, itong Bayanihan 3 na pinaplano ng Kongreso.
Okay, but like for example, former Congressman Nery Colmenares flagged that in 2020 there was 10.3 billion pesos in savings, but it was used to fund infrastructure projects, not the COVID fight, but it's savings like this that can be moved, for example, to agri, to food security.
Well, again, we welcome any additional budget for the sector of agriculture. We have shown that as you budget more support agriculture, we give you the better outcomes.
And in terms of agri growth, how would you predict it this 2021?
Ang aming target po, Karen, in spite of the pandemic, and we have another pandemic sa agriculture sa itong African swine fever, which is a 100-year-old problem of the world as well, ay binaba po namin yung target just at the level of the population growth rate. So 2% po ang tinatarget natin itong taon na ito.
Okay, at the end, Secretary, it seems that looking at the hard facts, that frankly speaking, agriculture is not a priority of this administration.
We are doing our best for every peso that we are budgeted, Karen. So talagang kayod. We have a 1DA reform agenda that brings all the family together, because if we harness this power of the 1DA family, mas marami kaming convergence, mas marami kaming outcomes.
All right. On that note, thank you very much, Secretary William Dar. I'll see you again, sir, and you take care.
Anytime po, Karen, and God bless. Stay safe.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll be talking to former Bayan Muna Representative Nery Colmenares still about the budget. What are the priorities of this government when it comes to government spending? Headstart will be right back.